Hey guys, today I want to talk about step parenting. Step parenting is a wonderful experience. Well, at least it can be, but it's not always a pleasant experience. And the reason I want to talk about it is because I've worked with many couples over the years who really struggle with step parenting. Step parenting can be much more difficult than parenting your biological children. And we're going to talk about why that is. What are some of the reasons that step parenting is much more difficult than parenting? Hey, I'm from a step parent family myself. My stepfather and my mother have been married for most of my life. I want to say I was probably in third grade or so whenever they got married, and they had dated several years before that. So they've been together most of my life. And I have a stepbrother and a stepsister. So with me having my personal experience, I thought it was really important to discuss some of the things that I have observed in counseling and also some of the things that I've observed personally. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of the reasons step parenting is more difficult than actual parenting your biological children. One of the main reasons is that children tend to be more forgiving of their biological parents than they are step parents. Another reason is parents typically have a higher level of tolerance for their biological children than step parents do for their stepchildren. In addition, biological parents are sometimes protective over or with their biological children. Since that step parent may have less tolerance for maybe inappropriate or undesirable behaviors with their stepchildren than biological parents are with that child, sometimes reduced tolerance that you see from a step parent may be viewed as a threat for harm regarding their child, their biological child. So the biological parent may feel the need to protect their child from the step parent because the step parent being less tolerant of the behavior than the biological parent can be viewed as maybe a risk or threat for harm. In addition to that, being more tolerant or being overprotective of the biological child is sometimes seen as favoritism or seen as allowing the child to behave in a manner that's inappropriate or against the family or household rules by the step parent. So the step parent may say things like, they just let them do whatever they want to do. And it may not necessarily be that. It may be that the biological parent just has more tolerance for that child. One of the most obvious reasons is a child wants to be parented by their biological parent, not their step parent. Quite often, children say things like, he's trying to be my father, or she thinks she's my mom. You're not my mom. You're not my dad. And so step parents sometimes don't know how to respond to that because once they marry their spouse, they figured they were taking on the role as a parent or taking on a parental role with the child. It's very difficult for step parents to know when they should and when they can stand up and or step up or speak up in their parental role when it comes to step parenting. Blending a family takes time. It's like a dish that takes quite a while to cook. You have to be patient. You have to be consistent. I have witnessed many families fall apart as a result of inability to co-parent together in a step parenting situation. Let's be honest. You start building a bond with your biological children after conception. At the very least, after childbirth. Parents are there from the day their children are born. When it comes to stepchildren, depending on how old the children are, when the parents decide to get married, they may have already developed their personalities, their likes and dislikes, and they just may believe they don't have room for another parent in their life. And a lot of that depends on their experience with their biological parents prior to the step parents even coming in. Because sometimes, like I said earlier, they believe that the step parent's trying to take over the role of their other parent. If there was a lot of volatility in the relationship or in the home when the two biological parents were together, the child may anticipate that may be the case again, and they simply may not be up for it, and they may be resistant to the thought of having a mom and a dad under the same roof again. So being able to reassure them that the experience will be pleasant if everyone cooperates and does their part, and being able to ensure that both parents are on the same page. And speaking of that, let's talk about some do's and don'ts regarding step parenting. Be very careful about expecting an instant bond with your stepchild. It takes time. You're not going to step in and be this highly effective parent all of a sudden. It will take time. You may get some resistance, and that's okay. You have to still be consistent, and remember that a power struggle is certainly not going to help the situation. In fact, the power struggles make it worse. You don't need to prove that you're the parent in the home. Know your role, enforce rules and boundaries, reward when necessary, and when there's rules or boundaries crossed or broken, issue consequences, but don't take away love and attention as a consequence. One of the big mistakes that families make with step-parent families is they focus on this whole idea of one big happy family. Initially, it's much more important to focus on individual relationships. What is your individual relationship with each person in the home, each child in the home, and build upon that? Because every child is different. Every child's idea of having a step parent may be different. Everyone's fears may be different. So focus on individual relationships and trying to get to know each individual child in the home and build a relationship, a personal individual relationship with them. The one big happy family will follow. When children are going back and forth, once parents are remarried, what I mean by that is they're going to visit the non-custodial parent, or maybe the parent that's sharing custody that lives in another residence, and one parent or both parents are remarried. So going to reside with their father on the weekends and then coming back home with mom and stepdad during the week, or vice versa, it can be overwhelming sometimes for children, because sometimes there's different sets of rules and boundaries in the different environments. And so being able to provide support and understanding with your children and stepchildren throughout this process is very important. And also being able to co-parent with the parents in the other home to make sure that everyone's on the same page is very important. It's important that all parents understand that when there is confusion and differences and different expectations in each home, it can be overwhelming and confusing to the child and cause emotional deterioration over time. So in order to maintain continuity and to maintain the sense of normalcy in the children's lives, it's important that there are somewhat consistent rules and boundaries in each home, if possible. Of course, sometimes co-parents are not always open to that. They're like, you do what you do in your home and I do what I do in mine, and that's fine if that's their position. But you have to at least try for the sake of the children. As a step parent, one of the best things you can do is encourage one-on-one time with both biological parents. It's important that your stepchild knows that you support and encourage and promote their relationship with their biological parents, and you are not there to interrupt that relationship or to take away that relationship. So encourage them to go visit their biological father or their biological mother when possible. Allow them to see you interact with them in a healthy manner, making phone calls, dropping them off, picking them up, and things like that. So they know that you're there to add to their family, not take away from their family. Let's talk about some of the advantages of step parenting. Merging two families can take a lot of stress off of parents. There's more people involved to help. Financial support is another advantage. Another advantage is problem solving. Children from blended families tend to be more flexible. In a blended family, there's more people to love and more people to love you. So you have a larger support system. In many homes, it may be more beneficial to allow the biological parent to be the disciplinarian and do most of the enforcing of the rules with your stepchildren than for yourself to do it initially until your relationship grows and there's trust. Because the step parent trying to come in and all of a sudden be a disciplinarian and enforce rules, it can cause a lot of emotional harm for the child and build a lot of resistance, and the relationship may never be healthy from then on. So as a step parent, initially you're really building kind of like a friendship more so than a parentship. The parent role and relationship will grow over time if you're consistent, if they see that you're there for the right reasons and that you have their best interest at heart, and also they're watching how you treat their mother or father. It's very important for your stepchildren to see that you love, respect, and you are there to protect their biological parent that you're married to. If they see that you are emotionally, verbally, physically abusive to their parent, more than likely, they're not going to want to have a close relationship with you. So your interaction with your spouse is key in building a relationship with your stepchild or stepchildren. Family meetings can be very effective, especially in families in which there are stepchildren and step-parents. This allows everyone in the home to express or voice their concerns, express and voice gratitude, and really just to see where you are with each other, to kind of check in with everyone in the family and make sure that everyone's on the same page. Also, you make sure that everyone's needs are being met during these family meetings. And family meetings can also be a time to revise previous rules that were set or boundaries that were set, or to figure out what's not working in the home, what's working and what's not working. Allow your children and stepchildren to be active participants in the family meetings and to be able to verbalize their desires, needs, and wants and concerns in the meetings. The main thing is that your children and stepchildren know that both parents are on the same page, and if there is a co-parenting biological parent outside of the home, that they understand you're on the same page. It's no different than them knowing that their parents and teachers are on the same page and that they're communicating effectively regarding them and the care of them. When children have stepbrothers and sisters, be very careful about forcing those relationships as well. If possible, it's beneficial if they can have their own space, their own bedrooms initially. I realize that's not always possible due to space and whatever situation people might have going on. You may not have enough bedrooms. You may have too many children because you're blending a family. So it's not always possible for everyone to have their own rooms, but find ways that would allow them to feel as though they have their own space, even if they're sharing a room. Making sure that they have their own, maybe their own drawers or cabinets or their own corner of things, so that everything isn't so blended, so that there is some room for individuality and personal space. Also, be very careful about taking sides whenever there's a disagreement between the children when they're step brothers and step sisters. it's very common for stepchildren to believe that their step parent takes the side of their biological child over their side or their stance. Very often, stepchildren believe that their step parents favor their biological children. And unfortunately, it's very common for step parents to believe that their spouse favors their biological children. That is not always the case. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes it's just that they have a different level of tolerance for this child that they've been around since the day that they were born. They kind of know what to expect from that child, and they've kind of become accustomed to their personality and the things that they do that may be very annoying to the step parent. They're kind of desensitized to it in a sense over time because they're the biological parent and they've always been there, and they know what to expect out of that child. Not to mention what has become acceptable and unacceptable between the parent and biological children has pretty much already been established prior to them getting into that marriage. And so once they blend the family, although this has been acceptable behavior for the biological parent, the step parent may come in and say, that's not acceptable. And they're completely annoyed every time they see this behavior. And the biological parent may not know what the big deal is and think that they're overreacting. So if you are struggling with step parenting and your family is overwhelmed as a result of blending families, please see a family counselor. It is so helpful for someone to help you point out the family dynamics and help you establish rules and boundaries, and also to help you to examine where your parenting style came from and how the two of you can not only blend your family, but blend your parenting styles as well. Hey guys, that's all I got.